Hi, everyone. This is a Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and/or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask that you see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they use their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Today, I'm speaking with that such leader in Denise Testori of Prestige Cleaners. Enjoy. So thank you for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast. This is Heather Younger, your host. I am so excited today. I have one of my closest clients on the phone with me, Denise Testori, with Prestige Cleaners out of Arizona, actually. And she is just one amazing woman. I was blessed to be able to work with her. Wow, it's been at least a couple years ago. I can't remember how long it was, but she reached out to me because she had been reading a lot of the information I'd put out there on LinkedIn and felt a connection to the messages related to employee experience and customer experience, and really just wanted to, I guess, tap into the energy. And she and I had a really good synergy there. So then while I was working with Denise, I really sensed a desire to improve, a desire to get better for herself as a leader, for her organization, and for the team that she led. And she was willing to take on the tough issues and, again, try to work through those. So welcome aboard, Denise.
Oh, well, thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure and honor to be asked to partake in your endeavor. You really have sparked a lot of things with myself as well as my team. Currently, as president of Prestige Cleaners in Scottsdale, Arizona, it's a family-owned business, and my role is to lead our team to fulfill our vision and mission. We are a full-service garment care organization, and we have 8 locations, which serves the community in an eco-friendly dry cleaning, laundry, alterations, wedding preservation, and pickup and delivery services.
Yes, and when I just remember being there and seeing your operation, I was super impressed by the level of innovation, because the operation, well, it's not tiny when you look at the dry cleaning and the alteration kind of business, but it's not one of the larger ones. But I felt like your mindset when I was there was one of constantly developing the business to stay ahead of the curve, to make sure that it was easier for the employee, but also, a really smooth experience for the customer. So when you talk about, what you do and how your, process improvements and your innovation, it really holds true based on my experience.
It really resonates with our founder, Mr. Don Fry, who had passed away back in 1995. And he was the founder, came from Columbus, Ohio, and he really was the foresight innovation. He did things that people looked at him and said, "Are you crazy?" And then after so many successful years, this started back in 1964. His son, Don Fry, has, as CEO, taken on that baton and developed it further. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it with our dynamic management team. Our latest has been developing a mobile app where customers can literally check on a garment and see if it's ready, a request for pickup and delivery on demand. So there are so many things that are being developed to respond to the incoming new customers.
That's great. So what is it that actually drives you to lead? Some people are driven by something in their past. Maybe it was a parent who kind of put them in the position to lead, or they were the oldest child, or it could be many things. What is it that drives you to lead other people?
For as long as I can remember, And my foundation has been my faith and family. I come from a very large family. My parents worked hard, and they set that example, and they never complained. And I look back as an adult, and I think, geez, I remember from the wee hours in the morning, both of my parents, my mom was at stay-home parent, and with 6 kids, she had her hands full. And plus just being there for her aging parents and my dad's aging parents. And then my dad would leave to go to work and it would come home. And sometimes it was just a bite to eat. And then he went to a neighbor's because their plumbing was having a problem. And my dad was one of those people, jacks of all trade. If he didn't know something, he read, and he literally tried. So seeing that as an example, and of course my faith, my parents really instilled in each one of us to be the very best version that we could be. And so that pretty much sums up my foundation of where I am and why I am today.
Awesome. That's great. So how would your team define your leadership style? We hear that a lot, and it's usually, I say your team because we can say what we think we are, but what do you think the words of your people would be, again, because you've been there for a very long time. So their impression of you is really the thing that matters most. What would you think they would say about your leadership style? What is it? What would define it?
I think at this time, a servant leader. I believe that being a family-owned business that has 64 employees, I get to be more among the crew than perhaps a big Fortune 500 company or something like that. I think that I'm able to interact not only with my management team, but each individual and help them in maybe their goals or maybe they're struggling with something or they're proud of themselves after trying to reach a goal, and they do. And as minor as some big corporate leader might think, it's very impressionable when you write a thank you note to that particular employee and say, I'm really proud of you. I know you've worked really hard and this was a big goal of yours, and here you are. And then we do some celebratory, whether it's a gift card or something that we know would resonate with that person, that individual.
I love that. There's some really key messages in there. One of them is, so I know that it's not a Fortune 500 company, but I still, there are some things that you do, some things you did right off the bat as a smaller company that I think even larger companies aren't really getting. And it is investing in your people and investing in you, as a leader, and having that foresight to know that, maybe bringing someone from the outside with a different perspective can help change things as well, change the mindset and change things for the better. And so that's one thing. The other thing that hits me is that idea of, writing the thank you notes. Again, you don't have to be a small organization to write thank you notes. If you have a 10 or 11 direct reports, you still can do, a couple times a month where you sit down and do thank you notes. It does go a very long way. So I remember when I was there, I just remember the gift cards and all the celebratory things you would do and just the little things you'd bring in for the team, cupcakes, whatever, you would just do it all spontaneously. So I know that perception of being a very giving, that servant leader is very consistent.
Thank you. Yes. It was something that when you walk around the plants and you see the things that they're proud of or see that thank you note or the words of encouragement pinned to their station, or taped or something like that. So what you're doing really is impactful. And it's just giving them that they are a part of the team and what they contribute is indeed as important as anybody else's. So I thank you for recognizing that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, here's something, because I think, pretty much everybody I invite on here, they're solid leaders. And of course they lead with heart, and that's why they're on the show. But What can you think of a time, a very specific example that you can share with the listeners about a time when maybe, you weren't the best leader that you wanted to be, that best version that your parents kind of taught you to be as a leader? And then how did you come out of it? So what did you do to come out of it and return to that more solid place?
Yes, I definitely can think of something. When I initially started with the organization, I was involved as their controller, CFO, in that position. As my kids became independent, I felt the need and felt like I could develop further my career. And one of the aspects was moving into the operational aspect of Prestige Cleaners. When that came about, we had a general manager at the time that felt it was time for him to move on and pursue other interests. It left the company in a kind of a tight spot because we had various spots open and vacant, which created a lot of not knowing what to do, no real concrete pathway or vision and leadership. And no fault of that other person, it's just they developed into another interest of doing other things and so forth. So when I took it on, I had to fill those vacancies. And then, of course, I was getting different generational leaders within it. And I believe my big mistake was not recognizing that and going as things happen where there was more micromanaging and not really developing and encouraging the managers to lead within their responsibilities of their particular store. So I think that was where I was off base on my role, and I sensed that I had people going in different directions and really not working as collaborating as a team. And that's where I was doing an awful lot of reading, and that's what pursued me to bring you into our organization and just really get the feedback from the crew without them feeling like they could not really express their concerns or their frustrations. So when you came on board, Heather, you took the opportunity to meet with every individual and take notes, and then we met together, you and I, one-on-one, and shared those concerns, and then developed a plan to correct the situation and get everybody back on path.
Awesome. That's good. And again, that was I remember that process wasn't even an easy one because again, once you get all the feedback, or once I get all the feedback, right, then I have to gather all of it and then share it. And sometimes the feedback is very positive and sometimes there's areas for improvement. And it's not always easy to take those areas and say, okay, I hear it. And here's what I'm prepared to do, as a leader to work on things. I find that a lot of people just find that hard to do. And I know I would too. I mean, it's just not easy. I remember I received 360 feedback before, and it was that formal kind of survey process where your colleagues review you and your team members review you and your manager, and some were really positive, some weren't the greatest, but weren't horrible. But it's always those things that happen in our mind. We start to wonder, well, what are they thinking? And who do they think they are? And then you start to really take it in. It takes a while for it to settle into your system and realize, okay, I'm going to start looking at me a little bit more closely, and I'm going to start working on being better. Right.
That's correct. Yeah. And you were very instrumental in, putting it out there and saying, okay, this is what I'm hearing. This is where the company wants to go. And this is what goals you need to set for yourself in order to lead the team forward. So I thought that was a real defining moment in my leadership. And of course, it changes all the time, Heather. People, you can read resources and you can partake in different focus groups or what have you, but in reality, every individual and their culture, their experience, or where they are in their life personally plays an impact on how you can motivate them and encourage them to reach the goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And that does become harder as you scale the business. So when you went from 6 employees to 15 to 15 employees to 25 and going to 60, and the ones that are, at 150, the ones that are at 10,000, right? The more you scale that team, the harder that gets. But of course, with the large organizations, they usually, the direct reports it depends. I guess they said now the average is people have 11 direct reports, which is really it's too much. 5 to 6 is about right, because the idea is that they're not just cogs in a wheel. When we look in our direct reports of people that are looking to us for direct leadership, we want to be able to give them that time. And if we're spread too thin with having too many people that are expecting that from us, we just can't be effective. So, I think that's always a bit of advice to give to leaders out there and organizations, is just making sure you don't overload your leaders so that they get so burnt out and then they don't exercise great self-care. That's the other thing that goes into that when they're overextended, right? They burn out.
That's very true. Very true. And so when you're leading people and you're learning, you develop those skill sets to take on the initiative of empowering another layer as you grow, and entrust them to carry out what the vision is for the company.
Yes, that's a good point. Trust, when you're right, when you start to get bigger, trust enters into it even more than when you're smaller. So you really have to kind of rely on people and get out of the way and say, okay, I'm not going to micromanage this process too much because I need to go do other things that might be more strategic. So that's I definitely.
Correct.
So when you are looking to, things get kind of crazy, like really busy season, folks are returning from, coming from out of state because there's hot months there in Arizona, and you're just busy. What do you do to reconnect with your team? Just, get that connection with them, particularly the direct reports, your managers, your management team. What do you do?
I think, we have a set of things that I like to do to keep our team together, but sometimes there's those, what you want to say, a disconnect or growing pains where your model that you had set up had been working, and then you've developed and you're growing and it's not working as well as it had, whether it's for the last 12 months or 18 months or what have you. You really have to realign yourself. So what I like to do is just carve out time for myself and take the opportunity to write down, why am I feeling like things aren't meshing, people aren't connecting, or we're just moving a little bit by little bit away versus coming together. So then when I outline those points that I feel that are just not in alignment with the team, I then present them to the team, and then I get their feedback, because they may have other points that I hadn't thought about, or from their vantage point, they have things that they're concerned about, whether it's coming from their own team or coming from the customers or vendors or whatever the case may be. We make it a point to meet on a monthly basis, our management team, and then the management team shares that with their supervisors and the rest of their team. We also have a weekly email that comes from myself, and I share with the goals of what happened the prior week, and they really look forward to it. They make comments coming back. And I think with the increase of technology, we're able to have more spontaneous FaceTime meetings if needed. So that's greatly enhanced the disconnect and bringing us back together.
Interesting. Yeah, I did notice that too. Again, I have direct experience remembering you, and really involving the management team and selecting and having, just really gaining buy-in in some of these ideas. So instead of it just being you putting forth the idea and everybody has to just live with it, you put it forward to the team and kind of let them discuss it. And then when they come up with the idea, whether it's doing something that's team building, whether it's doing an improvement to the facilities, anything, then I notice when you do that, it gets the buy-in and they appreciate it. So you really do empower quite directly in your leadership style.
And I have to add, Heather, one of the things from when we met, and I felt from the feedback that I received from you, from the team, is there's not that, particularly for the younger ones that were coming into management, to grow and take on other responsibilities. I've since identified through talking to the team and just exhibiting their strengths and so forth, and giving them the opportunity to take on things. For instance, you may have remembered my one manager at Goldwater, Matt Romero.
Yes.
He was fairly young at the time, particularly when you came by, and he just was hungry for more challenge and so forth. So now I have got him, I flew him to Miami, Florida, to a top-notch route dry cleaner, and they have 20 routes. And he flew out there, rode with them for a week, really had the opportunity to meet with the top players in that segment of pickup and delivery. He came back, he was just so energized, and he is very instrumental in the growth of our routes. So those are things I've taken on with each of our management team. They have developed in an area that they wanted or felt like they can make the most positive impact. So it's really exciting from that initial meeting that I had with you to what it's developed now. It really is exciting. And I look back and I think, gee, I really had held back these individuals, that I am so glad that I made some changes and gave these individuals a chance to grow.
Oh, awesome. That's a great story. And I do remember Matt, he was such a positive, had a very positive mentality. I know that you had also put him in like a leading the delivery route or something like that. And so I think it's cool that you then, again, organizations much larger than the organization that you are leading, will always make excuses about investing in their people. They talk about budget, and believe me, I know your margins are not huge. It's just the industry, right? And so
that's correct.
Well, to think about you doing that, like investing in him and letting him go, get out of there for a week, that obviously puts someone else out. But at the same time, you're developing him. So that means you are increasing your chances that you'll retain him that much longer, because he sees himself growing with the organization and under your leadership. It's key. It's critical. It doesn't matter if you're with a team of 10, 650, 6,500. It can go on and on. The idea of not being limited by our mindset as leaders, and opening it up to say, listen, I want to keep these people. This particular person is a huge asset, and I'm prepared to kind of go to bat for him so that he can continue to grow. So I just kudos to you. I think it's amazing that you did that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's inspiring to have people surrounded and help me develop as a person. So it's really exciting to see what's to come still.
Awesome. That's just okay. So for those who are listening and they want to, let's say they might be struggling in their leadership, they could be having, just some growth issues or feeling stagnant in where they're at. What might be a, pearl of wisdom, as something that you might want to leave them with, some key things that you think that they should keep in mind?
For me, maintain flexibility. This world is moving so fast. There's changes, and to serve others, you've got to maintain flexibility. And then in the same token, you have to have stability. Be able to know that people can reach out and you'll be there and be able to serve them. And then, of course, have the empathy. There's so many challenges around and things that people have outside of their professional life, that they need the support, and be able to know that you're there and you feel what they're going through, and help encourage them still to be able to proceed.
Awesome. Those are three, amazing tenets. And I think the key with all of that, when you were talking about, outside of the professional life, a lot of times as leaders, we think we do have to separate like our professional life and the lives of those that we lead to us, so that we can't kind of ever address it. We feel like if we do that, it's a slippery slope, and it can go way too far, where we exhibit the empathy, right? Or we are interested in them as holistically as people. And then they mistake that for, that they just want to get really in the nitty gritty about what's happening with their husband and all these other things, right? So we do have to, set the mark and let them know there are limitations. But I do agree that your team is going to appreciate you so much more when you show that they aren't just a number, an employee number on some kind of payroll list, right? That they are people and that you care about them holistically. So it's awesome.
I agree. And it'll show through their service to our customers. And that's why I think a lot of people, I get a lot of feedback from customers and just say, going to the dry cleaners is a chore. No different than you having to go to the a station and fill up your tank in your car. But they've expressed to me that it's a relationship, a friendship that they really value in our service. And so that's really gratifying to share that with the team.
I love that. See, this connection, I struggled early on because I always believe there's this very clear connection between the employee experience and the customer experience. And you just stated right now very specifically how you take your employees in holistically and see them as whole people and receive them that way, then impacts the customer in the same way. So then you see them, the employees then see them in the front line. They see the customers holistically, and then to feel like then the customers feeling like this is a friendship, that this is more again than they're just a customer number that's bringing in revenue, but that they are cared for by your people. And that's because you care for your people. It really is a direct connect. There's no way around it. For those who are listening, I don't know if that just hit you like a ton of bricks, but that was a very powerful message right towards the end. So I thank you for giving that, Denise. So for anybody who is listening, who might want to get a hold of you, offline, ask questions. I'm not sure if they ever do this, but is there one way they can do that, an email or LinkedIn or something?
Yes, I do have a LinkedIn. It's Denise Testori, or my email, denisetestori@gmail.com.
Awesome. And what I'll do for those listening, the contact information is in the show notes. So you can also check that out if you didn't have an opportunity to write it down, for example, like if you're driving. So I really appreciate your time on here, just Denise. Now, for anybody here listening, if you really like this episode or any of the episodes, go ahead and rate it and review it on iTunes or wherever you're listening. It's important because the more ratings we actually have on there, the higher up it goes. And so when you go in and you're searching, other people are searching for a leadership podcast, they will find this and they will hear all these great messages. So I really appreciate that support. Thank you so much, Denise. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much, Heather. You have a great rest of the week.
You too. Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.